Should I introduce?
No, I'll do it.
All right.
Okay, you go.
Oh, no. I just had the relief of not having to do it there for a split second.
Okay, I'll do it then.
I'll do it next time.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Chats Over Coffee with my yoga teacher. I am the yoga teacher. My name is Kayla, and I'm here with Peter. Hi, Peter. Say hello.
Hello. I'm your student, and also I do stand-up comedy as well. If you're listening in real time, it's August 2023, but you can be listening whenever because it doesn't matter. It's all evergreen and should still. So don't stop listening if it's December or whatever. But before it starts, we're going to tell you what we're both doing in August, in case you're around now and you want to get involved with other. So tell me what you're doing in August if you're doing anything.
Save
the.
I haven't got any.
Yeah,
let me just take over. So I haven't got anything massively big or any massive launches or anything like that going on in August. But I still have a yoga class 3 days a week, online classes 3 days a week. Anybody can join from anywhere in the world, so definitely join. And I also do online coaching. So I do group sessions, which I don't have any planned at the moment, but keep an eye out. And I also do one-to-one sessions. When you really want to work on something private, and that can be something like back pain or physical issues, or it can be bigger than that, life-changing transformations if that's something that you're looking for. So it's all on my website. But what are you doing?
Your website is called KaylaMcCormack.com. Yeah?
Yes.
There's a link below.
Yeah, it's just my name, KaylaMcCormack.com.
So in August, I am doing some interesting gigs. So I'm in Budapest doing the biggest outdoor music festival outside of Glastonbury in Europe.
Wow.
Well, yeah, say that, but then they've got to do 25 minutes to a load of people that don't have English and as a first language with a load of nosebleeds, so it might be rubbish. But, I'm also doing a wellness festival in Gloucestershire called Soul Circus Festival, I think, and it's it's got loads of mindfulness and yoga retreat bits. So maybe there's
you should ask them if they know you from this podcast, because maybe they thought we were a duo and that's why they hired you, and then you're going to show up by yourself and they're going to be like, well, where's Kayla?
Maybe that's why the fee was so good. So otherwise, if you follow my Instagram and stuff, if I am doing anything, if I do write another Substack piece and stuff, it'll all be posted up on there. I
wanted to say that I completely forgot that I am doing something in August. So at the moment, I teach online every Tuesday at lunchtime here in England, and it is a focus class. And normally this focus changes from week to week, but recently I've decided that the next 14 classes, they're all about the body. There are recordings of the classes if you can't attend live, and the really interesting topics. So we've talked about the brain. Our next class is going to be on wrists and arms. We've talked about lungs and breath work. So if you're interested in learning about your body, you have an area you want to learn about, then I would recommend one of these classes. And if you're not quite sure, then just get in touch. And again, go to my website, find me on social media, because this is a great opportunity for, really good quality kind of learning class rather than just like a yoga class to move. There's a lot of information in these, but a lot of anatomy focused information.
Oh, and it's sort of half on that. I forgot to mention that there's a specific YouTube channel for this podcast now, because apparently nobody under the age of 30 listens to podcasts on a podcast app.
Okay.
And you have to put it on YouTube. So everything is in the process of going on YouTube. So it may be that by the time this comes out, not every single episode will be there. They'll also have no views because no one would have watched them. So I'm going to end up putting playlists on there so that I'll stick a load of anatomy ones together, and all the niyamas and all the yamas will be in the same playlist.
That's a good idea.
That'll be hopefully a good resource. So the YouTube channel is just, you would just type in the name of this podcast, or because it's such a bloody long title, or it's at the initials of the podcast. So it's COCWMYT pod.
Wow, well done. I was doing it with my fingers then. Is he going to get it right? Lots of news for August.
Yeah, too much of anything. It's going to be a long intro. But anyway. So
sorry. Thanks for your patience.
So yeah, let's make shall we just, and the thing can start now, can't it? So
yeah, we'll start now. I used to do this trick because we did a lot of backpacking around Europe. I used to do this trick where I would take my sarong and I would take it around the hand loop at the top of my backpack. I would wrap it around that and then flap it over my bag, so my bag was just covered with it, so nobody could get to any of the zippers or pouches without it being really obvious. So that was my pickpocket deterrent.
This is just full of so much wisdom. I remember getting confused. Obviously, this is the classic British American sort of thing, but the belly, or we would call them bum bags, but of course that's not what the Americans.
Yeah, but they don't go on your bum, so that's a bit weird.
Well, Americans are called them fanny packs, which is more accurate, but it's. I remember asking what that word meant when I was young and being told it meant the other side. I think that maybe there's an archaic British slang that it is actually for your bum, but it's not widely used, and it can make you look very stupid at school. So I think parents should just level with their kids and tell them what all the swear words mean, because you're going to find out anyway, and you're just going to look stupid when you start guessing.
Yep, and then one day when you're young enough, you do something where you use a word that you thought was a euphemism that wasn't a euphemism, and then your parents get really angry at you for swearing, and then you're like, but I didn't know it was a swear word, and then they go, yeah, I did, and so you might as well just tell them.
If you're just honest with people, there's not going to be any, and just say, look, don't use these in a certain company and stuff, but you just cause more problems down the line. That's my attitude. If I ever have a child, I'd just be like, first word mama, next word dada, then fuck.
Have we not had a breath-focused podcast yet?
I don't think so. You sometimes talk about pranayama and prana being life force and breath, and you've mentioned that a few times. That's in your greatest hits reel, probably. But in terms of actually doing breathing techniques and all that sort of thing, I don't think we have done anything like that.
So I'm really surprised. No, but that's really good. I don't mind, because I've got that there.
Yeah. Well.
So what are your questions then?
I remember being told years ago when I had some mild anxiety thing.
Oh, okay.
I was told to do breathing exercises. And the only thing I remember from that is being told if you do a longer exhale than you inhale. I don't know how you can exhale more carbon dioxide. Is that possible? But apparently it was more soothing to do that. It would calm you down more. And that's all I can really remember. Longer inhales and exhales is better than short ones for if you're feeling jittery or whatever.
So specifically around that, so you're talking about breathing exercises that help with maybe anxiety or nerves or stress or, those kind of feelings in the body. So basically when you don't feel very good, and you can flip this on its head, you can say it both ways, it doesn't really matter, but when you don't feel good, your breathing changes. So you have short, faster breaths. So I know we've talked about the nervous system in the past, and the nervous system, your parasympathetic nervous system, so that's the side of your nervous system that kind of is automatic functions and governs your digestion and your sleep, and it governs your healing. That kind of thing kicks in when we're asleep, when we're resting. And the opposite of that, your sympathetic nervous system, the one that's your fight or flight response. I know it's not always quite as black and white as that, but that kind of feeling of rushness and anxious and anxiety, that is obviously intended to get us up, get us going, get us ready to run, really increases your heart rate, all that kind of stuff. And that is directly connected to your breathing. So if you take rapid, fast breaths, say if you did it when you were tired. So one of the breathing techniques that we do is kapalbhati, which is a fast exhalation through the nose.
I like doing that, by the way. I think it's...
Yeah, I don't know it's a good one.
And maybe there's a challenge element to it, and obviously me being, very macho, I like the...
I've heard it called breath of fire, but then when I've searched on Google breath of fire, I found multiple variations. So you have to be a little bit careful when you search for things on Google. But the kapalbhati is a fast action, so it sounds like this. So it's just focusing on the exhale. That one is intended to bring extra oxygen into the body and to wake the brain up a little bit. And that will genuinely start to activate your sympathetic nervous system. It wakes you up. It turns you into your alert stage. So the opposite of that breathing, that long, slow exhale, will actually slow down the heart rate. So your heart actually changes its beat based on your breathing. So if you can get yourself to breathe out more than you breathe in, you're practicing, getting into that kind of rest stage and turning that off. So your breath is like your bridge between your nervous system, which is automatic, your automatic side of your nervous system and your actual, like how you feel in your brain and stuff like that. So your emotions. It's a fantastic way to start to change how you feel, especially for anxiety. It makes a very big difference for that. But for other things as well, like I was saying, you can take those deep breaths and bellows breaths where you breathe into the belly kind of quick. Like your belly's a bellows.
I'm always very confused by this 3-part breath where you can breathe into your belly and the lower part of your chest and then the upper part of the chest. But you're not...
Yeah.
Your lungs aren't that big though, are they? So what?
No.
So what is actually going on? Where's the air going in that?
So basically, with your lungs, this is a fun test. I like to do this one. So if you kind of imagine in your head at the front of your body, so at the front of your chest, where you think your lungs are, unless have done medical training and you actually know about the body, a lot of people don't understand where their lungs are. They just have this general idea they've got massive, too big lungs, you know.
Directly behind your ribs or something, you probably think.
Yeah, exactly. But actually, the ribs at the front of the body only come 3 or 4 ribs down. So they're just below the collarbone and maybe a couple ribs. And they're above the collarbone. So when you see in movies where people get shot in their shoulder, they're getting shot in their lung. It's extremely dangerous, and they never show it as dangerous as it really is. But anyway.
Has that ruined a lot of Tarantino films for you?
Honestly, I've watched so many films, I'm like, I'm sure they should be having problems. But I did actually watch something recently, and he had a collapsed lung, and I was like, yes! That is because it's in his lung. Anyway. So, not talking about film. But yeah, so your lungs are quite high up on your body at the front. But because we're 3D, obviously, we're not paper, your lungs actually go down. So they're kind of like a odd shape. They're not symmetrical from
front to back. You mean down the back, you mean? Rather than down
so your lungs come all the way down to like your lower ribs at your back of your body. So if you put your hands back there, like your lungs go all the way back there. So it's kind of like almost like a C shape, but you know, obviously it's not thin, you know, it's a lung shape. It's just showing that your lungs aren't like this perfectly symmetrical circle or this bag of air, you know, they're an interesting shape. And we can, as humans, control how we breathe. So one of the things that I've done in some of my classes is you can put your hands on your lower ribs under your chest, kind of like at the front of your body, and you can breathe so that those ribs move, so that you feel your hands move under your rib, you know, your rib cage moves. And then you can do your hands on your belly, like around your belly button, and you can make a point to breathe so that your belly moves out. That's a completely different breath, and your rib cage will move less when you're focusing on breathing the belly out. So what's happening is you're choosing what muscle groups to help with your breath. So you have your diaphragm, which does the breathing, basically. The majority of your breath and emptying and filling the lungs happens when the diaphragm moves. A relaxed diaphragm is an exhale, so like you're not really breathing very hard. But when you're inhaling, that's your diaphragm moving to pull air in, to make a vacuum in a sense, and then air comes in and you take that breath because there's empty space and it needs to be full with something. So your diaphragm is your main breathing muscle, but loads of muscles are accessory breathing muscles. The muscles in your neck, the muscles down the sides of your ribs, your little intercostal muscles, little tiny ones in between the ribs, muscles in the back, all help with your breath. So when you decide where you're sending the breath, for want of a better word, like when you're in a yoga stretch and they go, breathe into the left side, and you're like, surely I'm just breathing. You can actually imagine sending the breath into that by just using those muscles more. So you're kind of trying to send the signals to the area where you want to stretch, in a sense. So you breathe deep so that when you're leaning off to one side for that side stretch, and you breathe into the side that's open, you're just kind of sending the mind there to make sure those muscles are stretching and engaging to make that space for the breath.
Because I thought it was some sort of illusion for a second, like you weren't really doing it from your belly, but yeah. I mean, if you think it, it kind of happens.
Your lungs aren't in your belly.
Yeah.
We know that.
But it's all like, in a way, I guess it's a psychological trick, because it's like the whole thing about consciousness and like you're not really seeing through your eyes. It's all generated in your brain anyway. So if you're concentrating if this is actually what happens, if you're concentrating your neuroreceptors to a certain part of your body, you'll be more conscious of that anyway.
Exactly.
So if you meditate and you concentrate on your breath, you can concentrate on your breath in different areas of your body anyway. You can do it in your abdomen or in your throat or whatever. You just choose where to focus on, don't you?
Exactly. So we have breathing techniques that focus on the throat. Your ujjayi breath is that whooshy noise in your throat. So kind of like when you fog up a mirror.
Do you sort of like close your throat up slightly at the back? Is that?
Yeah. So if you were to fog up a mirror and you go, that is exactly it. That's it. That's what you want to do. But instead of doing it through your mouth, you want to try to keep your mouth closed and do it through your nose. And some traditions, you do it both on the inhale and the exhale. Sometimes they only teach it on the exhale. I don't know if that's just to make sure people don't get dizzy or, it is a bit like play around with it a little bit, have fun kind of thing. It's not all set in stone. But the ujjayi breath, I would say, is inhale and exhale.
Is that just purely like trying to slow your breath down sort of thing, another technique, or is there something specific about that technique?
It's supposed to be kind of clearing for the throat and help with not getting sore throats.
Does it?
I don't know if any actual medical papers have been done on that, though. I haven't found any.
Yeah, how could you do? You couldn't do a control test for that, though, could you? Because
I know. Would you have to give everyone a sore throat who decided to join your?
Yeah, but also there must be a placebo effect potentially to that as well. If you think you're, because didn't you tell me once that, and this not to shatter the illusion of like yoga being beneficial, but didn't you say to me once that if you did a yoga class and you called it yoga for whatever, like back health or hip health or flexibility, it would psychologically, you would feel like you had improved whatever.
Yes, but you just pointed out something just a second ago. If you go to a class, the study basically showed that if people go to a class that is have been told this will take away your back pain, this will help your back pain, they feel better than people who do the same movements but were never told it was for back pain, just say it's yoga. So that study showed that was definitely something that happened. It was in the mind. But is that because when they go with the intention of healing their back, that their actual neuroprocessors and stuff are actually sending that signal down to the back so that they are really paying attention more than if they just went to a yoga class? You know what I mean? Maybe it's not all just in your head. Maybe it's not the placebo effect. Maybe it's their actual focusing is different if you tell them it's going to do something different. Maybe, yeah. Very big maybe. So the breathing techniques tend to have a focus. You tend to have a reason behind them. Your ujjayi breath for your throat, I mean, whether you believe that actually helps sore throats or not, it does engage the muscles in the throat.
I don't really like doing it. Ujjayi, but I don't like doing it like in and out the nose. I feel like it goes out the mouth but in the nose. Easy. Yeah. I don't know. I think another teacher says that's okay. Not that I'm.
Okay. There is nothing wrong with breathing through your mouth, but breathing through your nose is the most healthy way to breathe. It filters the air. It warms the air. It is the healthiest way for us to breathe. So even when you're doing like breathing exercises, it is healthier to breathe through the nose, especially if you can keep that habit up throughout your day. But there's nothing wrong breathing through your mouth. And if you feel like you need to breathe, then breathe. Like, obviously, don't feel like you have to do something so that you feel uncomfortable. Because the feeling of being uncomfortable is also going to have the opposite effect. It's not going to wake you up. It's going to wake you up. It's going to make you nervous, anxious, going to make your heart beat a little bit. But I would say, like, just be mindful that you're trying, because one of the things that is really, so if you were to talk about healthy breath, there's kind of like three things that we want to pay attention to for our breathing. One is like chemical, so your CO2 tolerance. The other one is mechanical, so like movement, how you can actually breathe. And the other one is frequency. So in terms of like chemical, your CO2 tolerance is really important. So that's why I say, like, if you were to breathe like your ujjayi breath or something else, something like your bellows breath or your kapalbhati, those really fast, deep, there's loads of air coming into the body, that's not a healthy way to breathe all the time. You want to have more CO2 tolerance. And if you breathe like that, you wouldn't get that CO2 tolerance. So something you can practice is holding your breath. You know, just taking a small breath in, maybe a count of 4 or 5, and then holding, again, for probably about the same kind of count. You could work up a little bit. You could count to like 20, something like that. And then exhale and kind of see how that feels and how that kind of feels in the body and how that goes. Obviously, there is some contraindications to holding your breath. You shouldn't hold your breath if you're pregnant. Not that you have that problem.
No, not yet.
And you should never hold your breath. You should never hold your breath longer than 2 minutes.
I remember when I was a kid, I used to drive. Well, I didn't used to drive. When we ever used to drive through the Dartford tunnel, I used to try and hold my breath all the way through. And I never made it. As an adult, I've tried to do it as well. And I still haven't made it, but I really feel bad towards the end.
Well, how long is it?
It's definitely over a minute.
Okay.
I thought being an adult I'd be able to do it, you know. I was like, I've done yoga for a few years and fully grown lungs. And
fully grown lungs.
I thought I'd manage it.
There's nothing wrong with kind of challenging yourself a little bit, but it's worth bearing in mind that, you know, when you hold your breath longer than 2 minutes, stuff starts to happen in the brain.
Yeah.
So it is important that you are a bit mindful of what you're doing. And to be honest, for your average person, there's no need. There's no need to try to hold your breath longer than like 60 seconds. That's plenty of time. You know, that's going to change your CO2 tolerance, your lung capacity. Everything's going to be very happy with that kind of time. If you're kind of like us, where you don't really live in a warm place and perhaps you don't necessarily go swimming all the time, there might be the fact that you just never hold your breath. You know, I would say I probably never hold my breath because I have no need to hold my breath. So making that part of my yoga classes means that I sometimes hold my breath. It's probably pretty good for me because it's just not something I do very often. But like, if you wanted to be more than that, if you wanted to hold your breath for longer, then obviously I would recommend getting a professional breathing coach who would, you know, like swimmers do, you know, because some of the deep sea swimmers, they can hold their breath for ages.
Yeah.
Like 10 minutes or something ridiculous.
It's amazing.
Which they obviously need a lot of training for.
People that do escape things, you know, like put themselves in a chest and stuff.
Basically, all I was saying was like that CO2 tolerance is important, so you want to build that up. But unless you want to go into a weird career like that, like something unique, there's no need to be forceful about it. Just holding your breath for a little bit is plenty, because it's really just about not doing the opposite. So when we breathe like really quick and really fast and really deep all the time, we're kind of flooding ourselves with oxygen. And when there's more CO2 in the blood, the hemoglobin actually releases oxygen easier and the blood vessels expand. Like, it's actually good for you to have CO2 in your blood. Obviously not too much, not too little, you know, a nice balance of it. So if you've ever seen, I think lifeguards do it, obviously not at your local pool, but like at oceans and stuff, they do like a quick breath before they dive in because it brings extra oxygen into the body and they can hold their breath longer. So you don't want to be doing that because that's not good for you unless you're going to go diving. So it's kind of like finding the opposite of that kind of fast breathing so you can hold your breath longer so that you have a natural, comfortable breath throughout like your day, you know. So that's kind of the idea for the chemical side of it.
Do animals feel like it'll have the same effect on animals, won't it? I mean, like if you were like a rat or something and you were in an anxious situation, I guess your breathing would change accordingly, wouldn't it? But a rat wouldn't know, would it, that it should do slower breaths and calm itself down, or is that
probably not? But I've heard that like certain animals do things. So I know like ducks will get into, like male ducks that are being a bit dominant or whatever, you know, they might get into a bit of a fight. They tend to squawk and stuff and flap their wings. But then after the fight, they might still flap their wings and they might still try and release energy and like do odd things that you kind of think like, what's that for, you know? And it's not still part of the fight. It's almost like they're trying to calm down or something, which I don't know if that's 100% true, but I thought it was an interesting idea.
Because do animals don't have, I literally heard someone talking about this earlier, do animals not have the sense of anxiety that humans have because they're less able to predict things that will happen in the future? They're less able to worry about stuff that would happen, whereas we can, and maybe this is not true, and maybe this is just like living with a human focus again, and we don't but certainly for some animals they wouldn't. I would imagine that they don't worry themselves with things that might happen as much as we do, surely.
I think that might be the case, but only because they have very physical lives. You don't have a dog trying to pay the bills.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But dogs can very much so be afraid of areas where they've had incidents.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you're right.
So if they've been in a dog fight or something, and then you take them back to that place, they will show it. You know, like they might be nervous, or they might wrap around you, or they might not want to go that way, or something. So it can, to some extent, they can feel similar.
Yeah, but okay, but we'll put it another way.
Not the same
Can they? Yeah, in terms of them not being the same size, you could just sit in a room and think, not change the environment at all and think about stuff that could worry you and make you anxious, couldn't you? Whereas that wouldn't happen to a dog, I wouldn't have thought, would it?
I don't think so.
The dog would just lick its balls or something and just like
and just chill out.
Yeah. But so I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
So I heard a biologist say that we are the only animals, he thinks, that can whip ourselves up into a state of anxiety from nothing. Because of the way that we can conceptualize things to worry about in such a way that other animals
because of our big brains.
And it might not be true. Maybe it does happen we just don't see it so readily in certain, maybe in advanced primates it happens or whatever. But
it'd be interesting to study that idea in something like a tribal environment. You know, some of the tribes that still live in the Amazon or something. How much do they worry about like their next meal or if the little crop is going to grow or something? You know.
Probably would,
because obviously they have good brains like us, but then are they worrying because they live so closely in relation to nature and the environment and stuff? Do they still worry about it?
I think they
or
would
are we
still
only
worry.
worrying because we're like a slave to consumerism?
Yeah, but where does I remember this from my initial learning about anxiety sort of moment, is that does an anxiety stem from a fear of getting the basics? Or hang on, that sounds no.
Try again.
Yeah. it comes.
Take two.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay, so in the past we had to, if there was a lion about, you'd worry about the lion, wouldn't you? And the lion's not here anymore, but you still got the same instincts for worrying about the lion, but it's not a lion anymore. It's whether something else is going to happen or something. Yeah, that sort of thing. So they're almost sort of like lizard brain traits that are still there. I mean, maybe anxiety and also adrenaline and stuff is all kind of interconnected in that we've got a new world now where you get the same reaction to things that in the past would have literally been like a life or death, sort of like your heart's beating because you've got to get away from something. But now it's just, well, unless it's a bailiff, then in that Bill situation, there's almost like an overblown physical reaction to some things sometimes. But not to say that you can't be anxious about very serious things. Obviously you can, but that's where the emotions and the reactions stem from, is from the early human development of when we had more predators to worry about and other things. And it all, any sort of anxiety, doesn't it stem from partly like, oh, I need to get, some food in, I need to make sure we've got shelter, I need to make sure everybody's okay, because that's a survival. I mean, evolutionary, you'd be more successful if you were to worry about things that you need to sort out, rather than just be like, it'll be fine, because who's going to survive in that situation?
Our brains are designed to keep us alive, and then that means that we need to think about everything all the time.
So we're always worried, because it could always be we could always be more secure and better and have a bit. We could always we've got money, but we could always have a bit more to be a bit more secure, and we could always I mean, the majority of people are definitely in the case where it's like, oh, I could always have a little bit more of everything, and then that would make me feel a bit. Or maybe there's something else, because like but it's never enough
true
anyway,
security
is
is not really a thing. It's not really. It's very rare, I would say, because you have like, well, you could lose your job, and then, what would you do? Most of the world doesn't have free healthcare, so what would you do if you got that? And then what would you do if your insurance didn't pay for it? And, true security, when you really come down to it, is actually a really difficult thing to guarantee.
Nothing's secure, because what if there was a nuclear event or something like that, then money's useless. And
well, there's that as well. Okay, natural disaster.
Sorry, I've read The Road too recently, but
well, I was thinking more like in terms of like, what would I do if this happened or if that happened, assuming not worldwide disasters. Your tribe should take care of you. But then nowadays we don't live like that, so there is no. We
have tribes, but there are people on the internet that agree with what we say. That's they're not going to be any use. They're all in their parents' basements anyway, aren't they? At the other side of the world. So
exactly. I just mean like if you were really close knit little communities like in the old way back, then potentially they would take care of you.
I heard it's 50 people.
Part of that security. So
I heard 50 people is the ideal tribe.
Oh, that sounds nice.
In terms of like living with, because too much that in terms of tensions and all being able to kind of get along and stuff, I heard 50 was perfect.
That sounds good.
I reckon 3. That's my.
Not sure about that one.
that's what I'd pick, I think.
I was thinking 2, so. No, you're right.
Me, a partner, and a guy I can slag her off to. Not really.
So I think we have to kind of make the choice to try to acknowledge that our brain has these pathways of like trying to keep us safe, which is, like you're saying, kind of interpreting the future, guessing how things are going to go, you know, stuff like that, which we would sometimes class as worry, you know, when it gets really bad. So a way to kind of help yourself is to acknowledge that that's natural and good, but then to try and stop it. So when you notice yourself going down a proper worry path, and you can actually, usually a lot of the time you can feel that as well, like you get tension in the neck, you get maybe a stomach ache, you know, things actually start to change in the body. Tightness in the chest, that's a really common one for anxiety, and you feel that tightness there.
Using the toilet.
Yeah, well, obviously, that helps.
I don't want to be graphic or anything, but like, that's the sort of thing comedians, when they're especially quite new, there's often, like, if you have one toilet in a green room, then it's used a lot.
No, the nervous trips to the loo, absolutely, 100%.
Well, you're about to go into battle, so you imagine the queue in the First World War before they were about to go over for the toilets. They must have been...
Oh my God, that sounds awful. But there was something about that, right? Someone attacked the toilets.
Oh, they probably did, yeah.
It's like the one thing you're not supposed to do. Or whatever.
Yeah,
well, not necessarily
cricket,
a war crime, but you know what I mean? Like, it was just not something you're supposed to do, but then
I don't think it's in the Geneva
toilets,
Convention that you can't bomb the toilets or something. The Geneva Convention's 1948 or 9 anyway, isn't it? The Geneva war crimes came in after the Second World War because...
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, because all of the bombing, the Allied bombing in Germany, like the Dresden bombing and the Hamburg fire bombings and stuff like that, would definitely be a war crime now. But back then they weren't classed as such. They just brought them in after we won and could say that. But not that I condone it. It's obviously terrible things to have done, obviously. Like, I mean, the devastation of those places is awful. You haven't read, Kurt Vonnegut's book? It's really good. Slaughterhouse 5.
No.
It's so good. I recommend it anyway. So, I mean, me recommending a very successful book that most people know about if they're somewhat literary. It's not you should really check out a bit of Jane Austen as well if you get the chance.
Yeah.
Although I do like Jane Austen, but I'm just saying, like, it sounds so... You should really check out The Godfather. The Beatles, check out them.
Have you heard of them? They're really good. So what were we talking about? Nervousness and stuff. Yeah. So all I was saying was, like, if you're nervous, that you should know that that's normal. Like, all these kind of symptoms of that is normal, but that you can control it a little bit. So if you notice you're going down that worry path, to try and just stop, literally get yourself out of the spiral. You can do that physically or just, mentally or whatever. That's one of the reasons why people like to do meditation.
Yeah, I was going to pop in at some point and say that
I thought you might.
Yeah.
But the thing is I've said it a few times, but every time you use nerve pathways, so that includes pathways in the brain, so like areas of the brain, every time you use them, it gets easier to use them. So I kind of like to use the analogy of like a path in the woods. Like you might find a deer path and it's kind of a path, but you're not 100% sure. And then you find like a path that someone is like, I don't know, paved over, and it's like definitely a hiking path and it leads to this trail or whatever. It's like, well, that's clear. When you use something more and more, it gets clearer and clearer and easier to follow that path. And it's a bit annoying because obviously we want to change the way we think, but that's the easiest path. That's the path of least resistance for the energy to flow. Mm. So you have to choose to stop and go down the hard path. You have to choose to not think about it, even though it seems like that would be silly or wouldn't work. It will eventually catch up with you, and then it won't be the path of least resistance for your thoughts and for your energy to flow. And then, like you're saying, just finding techniques that help. So maybe those slow, deep breaths, like you were saying, that long, slow exhale to activate your vagus nerve and your parasympathetic nervous system, and movement. Because I know, because I talked about like movement as part of dysfunctional breathing. I say if you breathe like Ujjayi breath all the time, that would be dysfunctional breathing. That wouldn't be very healthy for you, obviously. But there are lots of things that can start that. So like if you're in pain, you tend not to take a deep breath, especially if it's somewhere in your middle, So noticing if you got yourself into a habit, even if it's from something very genuine. Oh, and since we were talking about breath, there is something called breath work. And breath work is intended to like be therapeutic. I haven't actually done much with breath work in terms of actually doing it myself. I'm certainly not trained in it, but like some people say you can treat trauma with breath work and stuff like that, like, and you can change how you feel and stuff with some breath work, which is very interesting, but not something that I've done much with.
I heard you can treat trauma with magic mushrooms now.
Are they legal?
No, but they do you look into there's loads of research into how psychedelics could be potentially. This is a really cliched podcast thing to talk about psychedelics, isn't it? So let's not go too far down that night. But there is research to say that, you know, they are beneficial and stuff. I know someone that went on an ayahuasca retreat. They said that cured loads of anxiety and stuff, but it's a very intense experience, so I'm not sure you're going to get it on the NHS.
I read that there was research done where people used a small dose of psychedelics under the care of someone. So like they would, I don't know, lay on the couch, you know.
Microdosing, you mean?
No, not microdosing, like an actual dose, but not going crazy, but with someone watching them and talking to them, and that the people that were severely depressed who went down that treatment route only needed to have the treatment once a year to feel better. I think the people who kind of were talking about it, that was obviously talking about the situation, were just saying that, I mean, it sounds a bit conspiracy theory, but they were just saying that nobody can make money from that.
Well, of course they can't. Well, yeah, obviously.
They can't make money from one treatment a year when you could put someone on pills where they pay 50 quid a month for or something. You know what I mean? Like, I know the NHS.
They're not going to make money from something you can pick yourself in a forest as well.
Yeah, and then there's that as well. I mean, obviously there is danger around taking anything that would potentially cause hallucinations and stuff. And obviously, like, even before all the legality of drugs and stuff, even tribal people and things like that would use them in ceremonies. They wouldn't just go around eating mushrooms all the time and, you know, being bonkers. You know, it's a ceremonial thing that they
mushrooms
would do.
Mushrooms are different to taking cocaine or something where you get a genuine addiction to it. I think if you did mushrooms, you would only do it a couple of times a year. I did them twice, and you wouldn't want to do them straight after. They were good. One time I got told off though because I did it at a festival. And it's basically poison, so I just threw up into a bin after a bit, and the bloke standing at the bin was some steward or something, and he told me off because it was for recycling.
It's funny because I read something recently about it, is not in the same kind of, that one was talking about a specific study, but I read something recently just about hallucinogenics in general, and someone said, like, it's like, if you could use the hallucinogenic to have a spiritual experience, whatever that means to you, you know, kind of getting to this point where you feel connected. He liked to use the terms of being like, it's not us in nature, we are nature. There's no separateness there, and this separateness is creating an imbalance. You know, we need to believe that that's us and we are it, you know. So he was saying that this kind of drugs can help you feel that connectedness and things to the wider picture. And then when you come back down, it's almost like you know your goal, you know, so it's kind of like getting a sneak peek at the end or something. It's like, oh, right, that's what I'm trying to feel. So he was saying, like, it doesn't make sense if you try to explain your feelings to someone else, because that realization will only fit for you. It won't work with anyone else, especially, you know, if they're not having they won't have the same experience.
Yeah, if they haven't done it, they probably would not be able to explain how it works, because I think that makes sense. From the second time I did it, I felt much like I was going through a spell. I was living in a situation that wasn't particularly good, and it didn't resolve things, but I did feel psychologically some things had clarified and stuff during that. So it was a therapeutic experience, but it's very difficult to explain that to someone that wouldn't quite have the same framework.
Basically, if you've done it chemically, you can kind of get back to that state in a different way, if that was a spiritual state that you feel like you want to get back to.
You can meditate and be very similar, actually.
And obviously, these things, like you're saying, once or twice a year, you know, these things, even when they were common to be used, they weren't used as like, oh, I feel a bit sad today, I'll go grab some things and put them into my body, and maybe that'll make me feel better. You know, that's not like, it's not, oh, I've had a bit of a stressful day, let me just take some drugs.
That's what alcohol and sugar is, isn't it? That's
exactly. That's not
a crutch. It's not the same type of thing. Not to glamorize.
No, but I think, you know, some people, everybody has a different life and everybody knows what their crutches is. And some people might use even something like marijuana as a chance to have like a very gentle kind of experience that they would feel is spiritual. And other people will use marijuana every time they have a bad day. And it becomes this sort of like, I'm not unable to deal with my feelings, so I'm just going to, drug them away. And people use pills for that as well. Legal pills, not illegal pills. It's all about trying to understand, like, if these are crutches or if these are things that are actually improving your life, what do you... And there's no... I think that's the hard bit, is like, there's no way to judge it. Only you know. Oh, so one of the other common breathing techniques that I've taught in class is the 3 perfect breaths.
That sounds like the name of a shit band, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it? No, it's just perfect breaths in general, but 3 or 4 is usually what people aim for. But if you can get to 3, then hallelujah, because it's really difficult. So the idea is that you're supposed to only think about breathing in and breathing out and nothing else for 3 breaths in a row. And it's nearly impossible. It's so difficult not to have a single other little thought pop into the head, even if it's just something like, I'll wiggle my foot. What's that noise outside?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be disruptive or
yes,
horrible.
I've done 2.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that was 2. Oh, shoot. Exactly. So it's just like an idea to try and focus the mind.
Is that enough breath stuff, do you think?
Oh, yeah. I'm happy with that. Do you feel like we...
I thought it was great. Very good.
Oh, good. I'm really pleased with that. I think it's great. But, like, obviously I've got so many notes and so much that I could just keep going forever.
Well, you can say that if this is not enough information and you want to know more, then why not get in touch with you?
Yes, get in touch. I'm also like, I have the recording of some of these classes that we talk about, when I talk about breath work and functional breathing and stuff. So if you're interested in doing that, 60-minute class, you can get the recording of the class as well. So message me. I'll only charge you £300. No, I'm joking. It's £10 drop-in, or you can buy a class pass, and that means that each class is £4. So much more reasonable.
The questions are free, unless you take the piss. If you're like every day, and what about this?
If you start annoying me, then no, I'm joking.
If you understand boundaries, it's free.